Greetings everyone, here we are with another delightful video. This time it is for Shadowrun the Sixth World Core Rulebook City Edition Berlin. Uh, the reason why I had to add on the City Edition Berlin part is it is indeed the City Edition Berlin book. This is the third version of the core rulebook, and I mean that specifically as in there's been two other versions for the 6th edition or Sixth World. From what I know, which I do not have the first one, the original core rulebook, that supposedly it was very poorly worded and organized, and people really hated it. As people used it, Catalyst Game Labs, the company that makes Shadowrun games, as well as Robotech, basically got feedback and they corrected stuff, which was in the second version, which I think is the core rulebook City Edition Seattle, which I have on the channel and I have also already covered. So if you want to look at that one specifically, you can go to that video and see what's in that one. But let's go with the Sixth World Core Rulebook City Edition Berlin. This book MSRP is for $50 or $49.99, which is actually a pretty good steal on a price for a book this thick. This might actually be, books like this about this size would be creeping into that magical $59.99 price now. And Wizards of the Coast and Paizo pretty much prices their books in that similar range. The color theme for this book is purple. And get a nice little overview of the city. The purple logo. By the way, please note that you can tell which edition of Shadowrun it is by the color of the logo. The 5th edition was red. You have a fairly in-depth table of contents and credits section. This goes down from chapter into subsections and into specific topics in that subsection. So in character creation, you have on page 58, starting is define your role and history. And then in 59, you'll have arcane specialist, face, street samurai, and technology specialist, all on page 59. And then you get to page 60, you got history, which goes over your history of your character. And then page 63 onward, you have your select character priorities. Page 66 is select qualities. Page 66 is also spend and customization karma, buy gear, and finish steps. And then they break down from there from 66 to 67, 67, contracts, knowledge and language skills, and final calculations. So to get the point across, they did go into a great deal of effort in actually becoming more granular in the table of contents, as well as cleaning up various wording issues throughout the book. As you can see that the table of contents is literally 3.5 pages long. It even has a key to the tables, as well as the Berlin section. And then there's the credits right down here for Catalyst Game Labs. You have the introduction right here. Very nice artwork generally in Shadowrun books. Please note, this is a section on slang for the street slang. All these sections are included in the previous versions. However, some organization has been improved incrementally from version to version of the core rulebook. So the newest version is the core rulebook City Edition Berlin. You have a short story here. Shadowrun is one of those Shadowrun is one of those weird games where it is a deep gameplay system, but at the same time, it's also heavily narrative oriented or in lore. So as you can see here in the introduction section, is they go very deep in teaching you the lore and language and history. Well, lore and history are the same thing, but lore is more like the mythology of a setting, where history is the more hard facts. But anyways, they go into a great deal of effort to convey what the world is like, culture, terminology, the rules of different people, your player characters, corporations. They put a great deal of love into trying to explain to you as deeply as possible and give you as much big page artwork as possible to give you a solid idea of what you're getting into. They go over each and every major event in history, major regions of the world, what happened in them, and so forth. They get into now, here's chapter 2, which is game concepts. They go over tests and how to use the dice and opposed tests and extended tests and teamwork tests and buying hits and trying again, character traits and so forth. Generally, the artwork is pretty good. All the text is nice big section here. You can see the game terminology. They do a very nice job of keeping the text nice and big for easy reading. I have had people type in the comments like, why are you so obsessed about having large text and having quality typeface and color choices and stuff like that? Well, see, kid, when you get past the age of, say, 30, there's a chance that one or both of your eyes are going to start becoming weaker in perception, but also the capacity for detail. But also, there are people who are not blessed like you to be able to see and read as easily, either by, say, a disability or just an injury or something else. Dyslexia sucks like ass. I have very mild dyslexia. It only really kicks in when I try to mentally visualize or remember numbers or letters. But I can read stuff perfectly fine as long as the letters are nice and big. However, my ADHD kicks in if it's a giganto wall of text. My brain starts losing track of where I was in the sentence every so often. So it's really nice to have have everything properly paragraphed and everything be precise chunklets without having wasteful words added in, but also being precise in terminology, because my autism Asperger's kicks in and on that, and it's like, oh my goodness, need some clarification. But anyways, they are very clean with their terminology, as this is the third version of the core rulebook, and they have put increasing effort into clarifying terminology and fixing misconceptions, grammatical errors, and stuff like that, by either adding an extra set of sentences here, or to clean up a something that didn't make sense in the older version, or try to fix up the grammar and stuff like that in there. So they explain the edge system, spending X amounts of edge. I think the original version of this, older version was a smaller, not as clearly described set of terms. Also, this is a very important point. This is actually a contentious system in Shadowrun, because some of the people from 4th edition and 5th edition and earlier don't like how the edge system has been turned into more of a tiered system in 6th edition. This is one of those dark problems in TTRPGs that, as a TTRPG goes on for many decades, and then some, eventually the company who makes it will eventually have to make a new edition because they covered all the concepts, or something has become unbalanced, or there's so much old material for the system that people are no longer buying, so they kind of have to start a new edition just so they can keep in business, because no one wants to buy this stuff now because they have so much material they don't ever need to buy anymore of the same thing. So what happens is the company creates a new edition, and the new edition is sparkly. They might fix some of the concept problems in the previous edition and adjust a bunch of things to suit the the current time tastes of the players and the game masters. And I mean also not just culturally, but also mechanical fixes, streamline things more so, and so forth. The problem with this is, as every system gains in additions, the fan base simply just doesn't grow, but also splinters, and people become addition warriors. And sometimes it's a completely illogical preference, and usually people will settle upon either the edition they started with, which will become their favorite edition. So if someone started with like fourth edition is their favorite edition. It's the only really good edition. Fifth edition might be an improved version of fourth edition, but they'll still prefer fourth edition over fifth edition, and so forth. You have all the various conditions. Please note, I do agree with an assessment of some people, well, particularly with Kazimir Ubernsky and a few others, who noted game designers, that when you have a system that has a lot of conditions in it, that it can actually result in added burden on players and game masters to remember each condition. And it's usually a good idea to eliminate conditions that overlap in function. But anyways, here we go. We have now into the section of species, or breeds, or races, or however we want to call it. But basically, we have character metatypes: dwarf, Homo sapiens hominis, and elves: Homo sapiens nobilis, Homo sapiens sapiens, humans, and Homo sapiens robustus, which are orcs, and Homo sapiens ignitus, which is trolls. And those are the four major races / species in Shadowrun. And it covers over lifestyle, street level. Your lifestyle is your street, squatter, low, middle, high, and luxury. Which then they have pricing for month on. And then you go over your character creation. Talks over your basic class information right here. It's very nice that they have just a little section right here, 2 or 3 paragraphs for each class or role, that tells you basically what you're getting into with that class or role. And then it goes on into your history, building out your character's history and characteristics, and then character priorities, and continuously working on there. They explain even more concepts for the system. And as you go along, they explain your progression system, your spells, your basic feats or advantages or disadvantages in the system, and so forth. They even have like allergies or stuff like that. Various quirks and conditions your character can have. Sensitive system, orc poser, low pain tolerance as a disadvantage, and so forth. And then we're on to the archetypes, which are basically the classes of the system, which we have the adept. The adept uses some magic, but the magic they use is specifically body enhancement or empowering abilities. Like they might charge a fist up with flaming energy to punch someone in the face. They're essentially monks from Dungeons and Dragons. but with a touch more magic splashed into them. And then we got the combat mage, which is basically a sorcerer who throws fireballs and jets of ice and stuff like that. You got the covert ops specialist, which is your rogue. You got your decker, which is basically like a decker. A decker is kind of like your alchemist in Dungeons and Dragons, except specifically in the sense of computer programming. Then you have your face, which is basically your bard. You got your rigger, which is your other half of your alchemist, which is more the mechanical side, tinkery, building stuff together. Then you have your street samurai, which is basically kind of like your fighter / paladin or even barbarian. Then you got your street shaman, which is kind of like your druid, connecting to nature and stuff like that, and environment. And then you got your technomancer, which is more like your wizard. And then you have your weapon specialist, which is basically like a ranger or a paladin, but also a bit of fighter and so forth. Then they go over your skills like astral skill, athletics, climbing, swimming, escaping. If you played Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, you'll generally understand the range of skills in this system. You have like probably like 20 or 30 skills in this system. Unlike Dungeons and Dragons, which only has like typically like I think 13-ish now. They part it down. But the skills are not heavily upgraded or leveled up, so you don't have a ton of points you put into them. Unlike 3.5, you just put a little bit into it and you go. Yet again, some more artwork. Each edition of Shadowrun has, and each one of these books has a new piece of artwork in it. There you have a fold-out poster right here with four different characters on it, as well as a poster of Berlin. Because giving you the feel of the world is exceedingly important in Shadowrun. Going through the skill levels, actually it's probably not 30, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's a subcategory of one skill is like a engineering technology skill. And go back a page and double knowledge skills. So there's like 20 knowledge skills, and then you have language skills, which you have 4 levels in, and then you have talking about climbing the ladder, combat rules right here. Yet again, it explains the edge system right here. This is the chart I was talking about earlier. For the way back there when they were going over it. I think they've like made a point of having stuff reoccur multiple times in different levels of detail to make it easier to learn more intuitively. You have initiative up here, bringing the pain. Section on bringing the pain to your enemies. Combat rounds. Initiative example, so it explains an actual initiative order as an example here. Surprise rules. Weapons, armor, characteristics. So you got your explanation on your different little characteristics of your weapons and your armor. Combat options you can take, like offhand attacks, knockdowns, grapple, attacker, a defender, multiple attacks. And then you have explanation on barriers. Breaking through, shooting a barrier, gun, wooden door example. Shooting a barrier full auto and wooden door example, and various examples here. They have put more effort into each version of this book, explaining things a bit better. Grunt groups, using grenades and explosions, and so forth. Then we have information on healing, such as first aid kits, med kits, healing examples, magic healing, natural recovery and medical assistance, overflow. Then we have a section on toxins and drugs, such as vector, speed, duration, power, and effect information. Concentration, antidotes, toxins, different types of toxins, different types of drugs, such as alcohol, deep weed, jazz, bliss, cram, kamikaze, nitro, long haul, Novik Coke, psych, and zen. Then we have a section on magic. Shadowrun is a neat little blend of sci-fi future with a splash of magic, a lot of magic in it, which explains a lot of fun stuff like why there's orcs and trolls as player races. But you have spells. For a quick example, let's back up here. Let's look at Lightning Bolt, or Lightning Ball. You have information for range, time, duration, DV, and damage, and then a quick explanation for the spell. And then you have a simple spell like Mana Bolt right here, which is direct combat, which explains out here. I'm not a super expert in this system. So it's always interesting. I always learn something new when I page through this. But anyways, my only thought is probably box these spells out a little bit more. Or put a box around them so it doesn't run together. Which it shouldn't. But it's very... this should look fairly... not terribly difficult. They do have them separated by types of spells, such as you have a section on illusion spells, and then you have a section on health spells. So you have health spells right here, which includes antidote, cleansing, heal, cool heal, decrease attribute, heal, increase attribute, increase reflexes, resist pain, stabilize, and then we go into illusion spells, which is agony, confusion, chaos, hush, silence, invisibility, improved invisibility, mask, physical mask, phantasm, sensory sneak, and then we have manipulation spells, which makes sense. They're actually more like buffs and buffs, debuffs. And then we have counter spells, or counter spelling section, which is boosted defense, dispelling, and so forth. And then we have information on how to do ritual spells. And what happens if a ritual spell fails, glitches, and so forth. And then a section on different ritual spells, such as curse, remote sensing, renaissance, ward, prodigal spell, watcher. And then we have conjuring spells and banishing and then so forth. So you can summon different creatures, beasts, a spirit of beasts, spirit of kin, spirit of earth, spirit of fire, spirit of water. And then we got spirit mind link explanation, enchanting, alchemy rules, and much, much more. Various explanations on various foci, types of focuses, and etc. Special rules for the magical abilities for adepts. Aspected magicians information. Some more artwork. And then we have the information on the Matrix, which is basically the internet, which the Decker is basically in charge of taking care of, which is basically the equivalent of the Netrunner in Cyberpunk. Various commands and or programs that the Decker can use. They were right around like 189 now. Then it explains a few more interesting concepts in there as well. Then we have the rigor rules. If you haven't realized it, the rigor and each class in Shadowrun more or less has its own set of special gameplay loops or rule sections that tie into it. So you have the Decker and the Rigger, who are more the techie people, and then you have the Shaman, which basically focuses more on association with the spirit world and life and wildlife and so forth. And then you had the Adapt back there, which has more of an augmentation magic that enhances their abilities. And then we happen to have, we just wandered right into, where did we wander into? Various creatures and opponents that you can, wildlife, which is basically the opponents here. This is this is a core rule book, so this is like a game master section back here for your various opponents. Running the game. We have another poster back here. Some of the classic artwork from previous editions. And some new artwork. It covers over how to run the game, as I said before. And then we have various augmentation items back here, like new arms, new legs, and so forth, that your character can have, or eyes and lungs and etc. Then we got the index right back here, which is a fairly large section in itself. And then we have the Playing Shadowrun on Roll20 little section right there, as well as various tables for various things back here. Probably be worth actually having just one of those clipboard little tabs at the very beginning of the section, just so Game Master can jump back here. Then we have character sheets, unlike the Dungeons & Dragons 2024 book, which does not have character sheets in it. Other than the example ones that have big numbers on them. Then we have the Berlin City data section, which covers over your essential information that you need for Berlin. Gutenfort. Berlin qualities. Berlin contracts. Berlin plots. And so forth. Then we have unique vehicles for the Berlin setting. And that's the end of the book. Overall, every time they seem to come back around to this book, they seem to improve it substantially. So I wonder if they're going to come back with a fourth version for another city or something else. Please note that they'll also release they actually have a standard book just for Seattle as well as Berlin, and I do believe also Emerald City as well. This is one of those systems I have yet to suggest to any of my groups, hey, are you interested in it? Because I've tried to get people into different systems. However, I try to pace it out a little bit so that I'm not like always bringing up a new different system every session or something like that, or every 3 or 4. I try to at least prep one together, find out if they're interested, and then if they say yes, that was the next one I'm going to teach them into. And if it doesn't take, then I basically go a few months with them in another system, the system that they prefer originally, and then eventually try another one. So it takes me a really long time to get around it. My primary group is like 90% game masters, and my second group is 75% game masters. So it takes me a really long time to get into a slot where I can run a small campaign or a series of one shots of something. So if you want me to cover the original one of these, I do not. The first version of the core rulebook for Shadowrun Sixth World, which I do not have, uh, please leave in the comments below saying, hey, I'm interested. Please consider, and if I get like 30 or 40 people at some point that say, I'm interested in it, then I'll probably order it and pick it up, get it. Overall, they are clearly making improvements to the core rulebooks as they're moving along, making it easier to read and making the terminology make more sense each time you go through it. There's still a large section in the front just covering the lore of the world. However, the lore of the world is still very important, but it is not as chonky as what I've been told of last older editions of Shadowrun. So there you go. It's hard to like put a score on something like this because it is clearly improving. It's probably in that 3.5 range. People will this is the hard thing with Shadowrun. Shadowrun community is very fussy about which edition they like the most. So it's really hard to find people who try out the newer editions. Most people are kind of locked in with 2nd edition or 4th or 5th edition. But there are a few YouTube channels out there that actually do cover Shadowrun Sixth World. Not very many of them. I'm subscribed to them. You can... the channel Hyper has guide series on it. There's actually a channel called Shadowrun Sixth World that is not from Catalyst Game Labs. It's an independent channel. It's just someone who named their channel after the game system, who covers mostly Shadowrun 5th World and 6th World. They have some 6th World stuff, but they pretty much stick with 5th World. And then I think their channel died after that. That's one of those things when you try to like create a channel that's named after an edition or a specific game system. If you wander off that edition or game system, you pretty much just committed channel suicide. That's why I keep my channel completely generic. That way I could just wander, and if at some point I like get people in my groups into say like Call of Cthulhu or Shadowrun Sixth World, and we completely abandon all games like Dungeons and Dragons completely, I don't have a problem with just moving on to that and just covering a new system as my primary focus, because my channel's not named after a specific system. It's basically just a generalist channel. And that's the general point of my channel, is it's just a general channel. I show you a book. I tell you what an MSRP is for. Roughly how many pages it has. This has like over... It just has slightly over 300 pages. It has 344 pages. I feel that 300 to 350 is the magical good zone for a TTRPG core rulebook or player's handbook. Once you get past that 400 pages amount, people start like, oh my goodness, this book is big and heavy. Oh shit. It's I don't want to read through this book because it's so fat. However, if you have like a core rulebook or a player's handbook that's like under 200 pages, people are like, am I really getting my money's worth, or there's there actually like some meat to this system or something like that. So I tend to notice that people tend to like that around that magical 300 range in rules. I do feel that this is like a 3.5, 3.75 range inch book. Fairly cheap on price. The terminology is getting cleaner and better. They are actually including numerous examples of various mechanics in play, such as your combat turns and your initiative and various effects going off, which is really nice. I don't know how it is in the original version of this book. I might actually buy that at some point when I see it get cheap enough. Or if enough people say, hey, I want to see it. But I'm trying to go forward, not backwards. If I were to go backwards and say, like, wander on to Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, I can literally do a video every day for an entire year and not cover the same book twice in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, third edition or 3.5. I have like 300 books for that system. Pretty much first party. So first party and second party. So that is a huge ass system. I've actually had people who actually asked me they are interested in getting into Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. There's actually a channel like the 3.5 archives or something like that is on YouTube that covers Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 and does builds for various types and rules in that system. So there you go. If you are interested in Shadowrun Sixth World, there is a beginner box and the third book for it, which is Core Rulebook City Edition Berlin, which I do recommend if you want to get into Shadowrun Sixth World. The beginner box is a fairly nice box. I have a video of it on the channel, so look it up and check it out. If you want more of these Shadowrun videos, please leave a like on this video and subscribe and comment. Yes, I do want more Shadowrun Sixth World, and I'll put that into a priority list on doing more of those videos. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful weekend, a magnificent month, and see you next time. Ciao.